The next presenter, next answer is
Yes. Am I audible?
yes, yes, yes. So let me introduce you. Dr. Devogopi has special interest in modern and literature theories. He has considered grammatical questions and questions. He has several certifications to his credit, indicated from the clients, operations, because of volume to classify this involved as question positions. We have worked with questions. Like essential signature is the signature of today we use I look at each steps.
Thank you, sir. It was very, very nice to be back with you people. This is my fourth time in presenting in the Department of GRS. And it has always been a pleasure. And I'm very grateful for the introduction you gave. And yes, and the previous speaker has kind of laid the platform for me from which I can begin. So the title of my paper is Ireland as an Identity, Study of Robinson Crusoe. I would like to begin the discussion of memory and its identity in the space of I of Ireland, not only as grammatical plural of the being, but as a dasein who confronts us with the plurality of historisizing now and now that in context of Robinson Crusoe. It is not just the trauma-scape or scope of being alone in an island that let me look at them together, but rather the labyrinthine chronology of time, where the discourse of I is beyond the instances of being and becomes a vacuum to be filled with endless signifiers. So I of Ireland and I of Robinson, both I together creates a kind of a vacuum of identity. Agential performative spaces are disrupted as well as enhanced by the island in corporeal epistemology, when the flat ontology of death corroborates with the Bible. In the scope of memory study, we find the biopolitics and necroparadigms conflate with aesthetic projects. Foucauldian biopower has been a gadgetry to study the rubric of Ireland with multiple praxality and the denominative power relations talk of both the docile body and the island/isolated body. Biological coordinates of human anatomical geometry creates bifurcated narratives of island as well as isolation, and memory is the subtext which retracts the Cartesian dictum of cogito ergo sum, that is, je pense donc je suis, that is, I think, therefore I am, into something like, I remember, therefore I am. The therapeutic balance is the hospital space, which makes memory bind us to time and space. Political sovereignty created the anatomy of isolated in cultural and social terminology as well as epistemology. The continuity of Robinson in the space of nature in the novel Robinson Crusoe is a reconstruction of the memory of ontological hope. So we are put into a kind of a debate. when we are reading the novel that even though his actual home is supposed to be England, but that identity of home keeps shifting for him. Because in England, he's an absolute failure. You have to remember that. But in Ireland, in this particular Ireland where he was shipwrecked, marooned, there his identity is as powerful as Prospero in Tempest. His identity of being the creator rather than creating creates the nuances and the nuanced application of home. When we talk about home, we cannot actually create that the space where we are born is our home. Because Heidegger has used the philosophy of phenomenology to tell us that Himmlich, the homebound, is not only about the Hiba, that is the topology, but also the topology. So map is important, but the map is not only a paper or a design, an architecture made by a pen or a print on a page. When we are talking about home, we have to look at from the topological space, from the space of mind where you belong. So for Robinson, this is always the question. Then where does he belong? What was his identity in England, which was nothing almost? And what is his identity in Ireland, which is everything? There's kind of a binary between everything and nothing. So here the time and memory are utilized as an apparatus. And the absence is not something that is negative and its absolute sense. And as Robinson is trapped in a time without presence, the presence of another being, till Friday comes. Even when Friday comes, he lives in a time without presence. It does not refer to the past, as Maurice Blanchard points out. And here I quote the original French and give you the translation. L'absence de temps, il n'y a pas de négatif. The absence of time is not purely a negative word. Il y a le temps quand se commence non. Neo. Neo is nothing. So it is a time in which nothing begins. Commence neo. In which initiative is not possible. Où l'affirmation c'est la récurrence de l'affirmation. The recurrence of affirmation is the affirmation. Rather, it is a time without negation. Ce n'est pas le négatif. Without decision. Where here is also no. Ici et nulle part. And that in which the thing withdraws into the image and I, je, and we, nous, recognizes itself. C'est sombre de la neutralité. It sinks into the neutrality of a faceless inner. Le temps d'absence de temps, ce n'est pas présent. The time of the absence of time is without presence, without present. This without a present, however, does not refer to past state, the past. And memory is something where, when we are looking into memory, narrative, and time as three pillars, memory is, if you see it mathematically, memory is tangent to the cosine of narrative and the sine of time. Violence is a cognitive manifesto to defend the identity among the marginalized, disfigured humanity. So, this postmodernism, post-humanism for about 300 years. So when we are looking into even post-colonialism, so if you are looking into from the theoretical perspective, this novel is predating all the theories by 300 years. And yet, why are we applying these things of time, space, and the nuances of Foucault? C'est pourquoi la raison, the reason is, c'est un texte d'identité. It's a text of identity. That is why I chose this particular text and not something from the postmodern nuances. I could have, but I wanted to bring this Defoe's time and try to tell my audience that it is not simply what we are teaching in masters or graduation level. That it is a story about pre-colonized colonizer taking over an island, forcing the natives into subservient life. No, it is a question where the identity of the creator, colonizer, powerful one is itself due to the time. And here the memory plays the game with time. And if this dice board, the narrative is something that becomes a Foucauldian era of postmortem of power sciences and of disfigured humanism. In this Foucauldian era of postmodern power psychosis, individuation is different from individuals. And the identity of one is not the oneness of identity. While dealing with the Cantonian infinity set, that is, if you are looking into the mathematical set theory by Cantor, as well as Veritalis, which is very much related with philosophy and literature, as well as the mathematics. It's like providing a mathematical practicality to the forces of humanity. So here we see that Robinson Crusoe's island leave out the aporia of time. That is, an absence present in the story. And Paul recalls magnum opus, though aussi, the time and narrative can be the formatively constructive to provide a denouement of the aporitic time. And as we know from Augustinian dictum in Latin, si nemo abiluare, because si qualente explicare velim nescio, translated as, what did it done? If one asks me, I know. If I want to explain it to someone who asks, I do not know. This knowing and not knowing creates the apple. That's actually the definition of aporia. That it creates the bifurcation of knowledge, whether you know the time or you don't know. And Robinson Crusoe in that island is in this dichotomy and not in the binary. He is not 0 and 1. I do not know, I know. No. He is in the dichotomy of it. He is always in a contradictory places, conflicted and conflated by his idea of home, memory, time. Now, if you look at Husserl explains how every attempt to constitute temporal objectivity in the subjectivity of a subjective consciousness can fail, and thus forms an apathy. In the realm of Robinson Crusoe, the textuality of isolation and temporal objectivity of man's subjective consciousness inside the text, there is an aporicity of breath. The retentional value of now, whether you are retentioning, the retentional value of now for he is its potential, not potential, potential extension to now that. Potential comes from protecting the extension, potential extension to now that, which is what Heidegger calls Seit zu, And here, the existential question of now is determined by the present preoccupation of making present. So I am making a present. So this is what we see in Robinson. He is making a present. This is not his present, because his present in Ireland is actually the absence in England. And his absence in England is actually the presence in Ireland. So when you are taking now at one place, this is the temporality and the sequentiality of the space-temporal nuances, which Derrida says difference. So the power, which is the deferred and differed in England, is accomplished in the Isle. So here, when you are making a present, and this is saying now, says Heidegger, quote, is the discursive articulation of making a present which temporalizes itself in a unity with retential avity. Now, this word, retential avity, is something that have inspired me a lot. Because this is not normal waiting. Like I am waiting. You are waiting for my session to get over, or I am waiting for my next presentation or my next work. This is not. So what is the retential awaiting? So retential awaiting is in the sense very different from Godot. Waiting for Godot, you have a person waiting, knowing that nobody is going to turn up. Here, Robinson Crusoe knows that, well, I expect somebody. I expect somebody here. And I expect that somebody is nobody. That somebody is actually a nobody. So who comes? That nobody will. But nobody is a person. So who comes here? Nobody comes. This Friday is the waiting for Friday is actually a retential awaiting of confirmation of me being coming again into this life. So Friday is not a separate identity in the novel, though he is a separate character, but he is as much part of Robinson as Caliban is opposite to Prosper. So, this Friday is the servitude of the idea of personal identity, subjective identity, looked into an objective. So this retential awaiting from Friday is what creates the nuance of I and he. So as I have 5 minutes left, so this finally leads to the creation of time of soul, which is in Augustinian dictum, destentio animi. What is soul of time? Like, Descartes has separated body and soul. But when we are reading pieces like Allen Ginsberg, or when we are reading Walt Whitman, we come across, no, body and soul are not separate. They are actually part, because there is the carnality in the soul, as well as there is the time in the soul. So it is not only body that ages. Soul does not age, but there is this time. Soul also goes through the time. Soul also goes through the carnality. So, and this is that part which finally leads to the question of creation of time of soul as distentio animi, the time consciousness, and thereby becomes what Husserl calls thus punctulio gestet, which means the punctiform of now in the philosophical study. Paul Ricoeur in his seminal work, he mentions the basic chaos of time and narrative as l'identité narrative, where time present and time past is neither negative plane nor something that creates a fracture. Rather, a time code when it experiences is explicitly present. The objective of this paper, thus, has been to look at Robinson Crusoe, where time is the performative guide and the narrative is the corrective and critical search. It is the primal inauthenticity, not authenticity, inauthenticity of our relation to things and to time that I have tried to explore in Heideggerian episteme of das Vorhandeni and das Suhandeni, that is of now and not now. Now that when I look into this narrative, and that's the retentiality is not the parameters set down by the chronology, but by what Ricord calls the illusion of sequence. So I would like to end my discussion with a simple quote that the
So this simple quote, which I tried to use, also brings out a kind of deterritorialization. And when I'm talking about deterritorialization, what we see is when we look at the territory of the island in Crusoe's consciousness, we see a kind of deterritorialization. Deterritorialization, or as J.A. Schalt prefers to characterize it as spread of supra-territoriality, is what defines a space in memory which is differed and deferred as political borders marked in the Derridian difference. Not only Derridian difference, when we are looking into this perspective of differed and deferred, we have to also consider the Lacanian idea. Lacan brilliantly points out that the triad of symbolic, imaginary, and real. So when we are looking into the Crusoean self, when he came into the island, he was put into a symbolic order of discovering self. But as we move to the advent of Friday, we see that the imaginary order of deterritorialization through the non-otherization comes forward, because Friday could have been the other, right? But he is not the other. So what we see here is a movement of deterritorialization also establishes a movement from non-otherization. And what results at the end is the Lacanian real order, which is a realm outside language and which escapes signification. So my paper, the objective of my paper as an island study that I am presenting in this August meeting, though it is an online meeting in Delhi University in GRS department, is to bring out that the island is not necessarily always an outside figure. The island is inside. And through the time and narrative which I tried to establish is that the territory is also inside us and outside us. So in this particular age, when territory becomes overt element of contention, we have to understand that what these great writers like Defoe tries to say, that the isolation of individuality marks out a kind of territory which antagonizes the other. Rather, we should belong to a deterritorialized, de-otherized existence. Thank you very much.